guys, my name is Caitlin. I am from grassfedgirl.com and I'm a holistic nutrition consultant, and I'm sharing with you about low carb, keto, carnivore lifestyles. And today we're going to be talking about carnivore breastfeeding. So if that's something interesting to you, then stay tuned all the way to the end, and I'll have so many great tips to share with you about carnivore breastfeeding, keto breastfeeding, low carb breastfeeding. I started on this journey about 10 years ago of fixing my health after I got really sick with Hashimoto's disease, and I was following all the conventional advice of low fat diets, eat less, exercise more, and it wasn't working. So I had to rediscover what was really the truth about our ancestral diets, and it has helped me so much with fixing my Hashimoto's, and now I've had a baby. So I had a baby about 3 months ago, and it's been amazing. I am just so thankful and just overjoyed that we had a baby. And me and my husband have been married for 14 years, so we've been waiting a while for us to have a baby. And he is just a blessing, and he's asleep right now, so he's letting me do this video. Thank you, little buddy. Number one is be prepared. So I took about 10 years fixing my health so that I could have a baby and get pregnant and also have a successful breastfeeding experience. So you really want to work on your nutrition. You want to increase all your nutrient-dense foods. So when I say that, it's not plant-based foods that would help you out in this focus. You want to get your meats, your eggs, your fish, fatty fish, all those kinds of things, bone marrow, bone broth, sardines, these kinds of things. You want to increase your omega-3s. You want to increase your folate, which is in eggs, choline, which is for brain health, and you want to increase your saturated fats. I know, but I've been doing that for about 10 years, and the last year or so before I got pregnant, I was eating a carnivore diet, and I was the healthiest I had been since getting my Hashimoto's autoimmune disease. So I definitely believe in following what our ancestors would have eaten, which is meat and bones and fat. So that is what I recommend you eating when you're getting ready for pregnancy, and then that will ensure that you have a successful breastfeeding experience. After eating well, you want to make sure you have a supportive doctor. Now, I had a midwife, and midwives are more on the holistic side of things, and they are very pro breastfeeding. So if you have a doctor who is not really interested in breastfeeding or doesn't really think it's much different than feeding formula, then and if it's something you're interested in, you probably want to avoid that doctor, get a different doctor, because my experience with my midwives was they were very, very pro breastfeeding, and they knew the difference. They knew how it was important to do that, and they were really pushing me to do it and to give it my best shot. So I really feel like that makes a big difference, because you want the attitude of your doctor or your midwife to be very pro breastfeeding, because even if it's subliminal, it is going to make a big difference in your success. Another thing you want to think about when you're breastfeeding is your electrolytes. Now, it can get, especially if you're on a keto, low carb diet, electrolytes can make or break you as far as your energy, your mood. So you really want to make sure your electrolytes are good and steady and stable. That means your magnesium, potassium, those need to be in balance. There's a great electrolyte drink on my blog. I'll link it down below. I also use an electrolyte powder. I'll insert a picture over here so you can see it's my favorite one. You can get it down in the description box with my code grassfedgirl. And you don't need to buy expensive things, but that is one that's really easy to use, especially when you're just had a baby. You're going to be very busy, and you won't be able to deal with making something complicated. So that's why I like that one. It also tastes great. So electrolytes have to be in balance, and that can be, I've talked to the lady who makes that powder. She works at the office there, and she said so many people have written them that taking their Redmond electrolyte powder has helped their breastfeeding experience. And I drank it the whole entire time since I had my C-section and everything. So it has been a great help to me in my energy and staying hydrated for breastfeeding, because breastfeeding takes a lot of water, and when you drink a lot of water, it flushes out your electrolytes. So you have to keep all those things in balance, especially when you're on a low carb diet, because it imbalances, you release a lot of electrolytes when you're on a low carb diet. So you need to refuel them with something that has them all in the right balance. Okay, back to support. You need to also have friends and family that support you. Now, my sister was a big breastfeeding fanatic, and she breastfed her kids for 2 years, and she's still breastfeeding one, I think he's 2.5. And I mean, I'm sure she's about to quit now, but that's what I'm saying. She was a great support to me. I could ask a lot of questions. My stepmom was in the Leche League when she was having her babies, and she was a great support for me. My mother also was a big breastfeeder of her 3 children. So I had a lot of support around me, and I knew that that was going to make a difference in my attitude towards breastfeeding, that I wasn't going to give up because I had them all to bounce questions off of and answer things that came up. So that was a big thing. Another thing that's really important is being comfortable when you're breastfeeding. It can be really tough at first because your back gets all messed up, and your shoulders, and you're tense and you're tight. So getting a good position is really important. I found that my Boppy breastfeeding pillow, I'll put my baby registry down below, and you can shop my baby registry. So having a Boppy pillow made such a difference. I have 2 actually. I have the regular one, which is pretty inexpensive, and then I also have one that's made out of wool, and that one actually is my favorite because it's a little more firm, and it has, no toxins and all that stuff. But you don't have to buy the expensive one. This one's about $25-$30, so that one's good too. You don't have to have, anything too fancy. So after you have your baby, you'll be in the hospital most likely, and you need to start pumping. So the nurse brought me around a breast pump. They give you, the pump doesn't have to be personalized, and they give you fresh, brand new devices, so it's completely sterile. And you just put those on, and that gets your colostrum, which is a very rich substance. It gets it going, and your baby can eat that colostrum for several days. So you don't have to worry if you're not having a lot of milk right at the beginning. And the colostrum is very, very rich in lots of vitamins and minerals that your baby needs. And your baby's stomach is only about the size of a dime, so it doesn't take much to keep them alive. And usually they have a little bit of extra fat and fluid from being inside of you. So they'll be fine the first several days while you get your milk pumping. So I think my milk came in about day 5, but I think one of the key things that made a difference for me was there was a nurse in the hospital who brought this pump around, and she said, get going. And she really pushed me, and she actually kept me on a schedule of every 3 hours pumping or trying to get my baby to nurse. And I think that made a huge difference in my success, because by day 5, when I was home, I was in the hospital 3 days because I had an unexpected C-section. But then once I got home, the milk just started coming in so much, and my baby was so happy, and he just ate. So definitely get to pumping as soon as you can. Now I do not pump at all. I actually use something called a Haakaa, and I'll show you that in a second, but it is a wonderful thing just to get your overflow and oversupply, and I make little bottles with that so that if I go away from the baby for an hour or so, I can leave him with somebody and they can give him the bottle of breast milk. So I'll show you my Haakaa. Okay, so this is my Haakaa. I love it so much. You basically just suction it onto your breast, and the milk just drips into it slowly while you're feeding. So you can feed on one side and use your Haakaa on the other side, and then you can put this away for your baby to have in a bottle, or you can just freeze it for the future. It's just really good. If your supply is low, you can kind of catch you won't waste anything, and then you can save it for your baby later on. So this is down in my Amazon shop in my baby registry, so down below you can get it. So when you're in the hospital or with your maybe you're with a midwife or a doula at home, make sure that you are able to interact with an lactation specialist. So your midwife may be able to help you, your doula may be able to help you, you may have a lactation specialist that came around in the hospital where we were at. They had several lactation specialists that came around. One came each day. They were amazing, and they were very, very, very helpful for me. So they can look at the way you're holding your baby and see if it's right. They can see if the baby is getting enough of the nipple in his mouth to make it work right. They can make sure that you're not straining or in a weird position to where your baby is going to hurt your back, or he's just not going to be getting enough of the milk. And I'm just saying he because my baby's a boy, but it doesn't matter. So the lactation specialists are very, very, very helpful. Also, they look for tongue ties, which can be a big impediment to successful nursing. Also, it can cause a lot of gas and even speech problems in the future. So it's important to get your baby checked out for tongue ties, either by your lactation specialist or your pediatrician. I've talked to a lot of moms that said that was a big issue for them and they didn't realize it until maybe they had gone through a lot of grief already. So definitely check that out about tongue ties. Lip ties can also be another thing. Your dentist can even help you with those. So my baby, they said he had a slight tongue tie, but we opted not to do anything about it because he was gaining weight so well. Your baby will lose a little weight right after it's born, and then you take it back to the doctor and they should gain back to birth weight within a week or so. And he did that so well. And then now he's 2 months old and he's 15 pounds. So he's definitely not having trouble with feeding, and he's in the 91st percentile. So we just decided that the tongue tie wasn't a big issue for us, and we were just gonna see how it goes and not do anything about it because it didn't really seem to be affecting him. He did have more gas when he was a little younger. The gas was just due to a immature gastrointestinal tract. Now he's doing a lot better with the gas. He's not really having it very often, and I don't think it's a big issue anymore. So we just kind of worked our way through that, and burping a lot helps. And also we tried gripe water. So if you have more questions about the gas and the tongue ties and all that, just leave them down below and I'll answer them. Having a baby and starting to breastfeed, there are huge changes in your life. And I think sometimes we're so go, go, go in our culture that we are not able to slow down enough to enjoy the time and just relax enough to breastfeed. So I think we're so used to instant gratification and just getting things done quickly that it can be a huge change of pace. And it was hard for me to slow down and realize, I'm going to be spending many hours of my day just sitting and feeding my baby. And even if you bottle feed, that is going to be the same thing. You may not have to do it, but it's going to be a huge part of your day. And I think that was just a mindset shift that it took me a while to realize that, hey, you just have to slow down, enjoy the moment, just enjoy being with your baby, know that you're nourishing your baby, and that this is just part of it, and you just have to take a breath, take a break and slow down. And I think that can be hard for new moms to grasp. And it was hard for me because I'm used to just go, 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 work, 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 get things done, just cross things off my list. So it's hard for me to just sit still and sit there and think, okay, I'm breastfeeding for the next hour, So just keep in mind that you're gonna have to slow down and just enjoy this time with your baby because they grow up so fast. It's already been 3 months for me, and it seems like he was just born yesterday. Another thing I wanted to mention, now if you are used to doing keto or carnivore and you do a lot of fasting or intermittent fasting, I've talked to a lot of ladies over the internet and Instagram, and they told me that they were still trying to do that when they were nursing. I definitely would not recommend that. You may feel like you want to, but it's really not necessary. And there's this idea that you'll be a lot more hungry when you're breastfeeding. And I found that also not to be true. When I cut my carbs back to 0, I was not hungry the same way I was when I was eating a little more carbs. So definitely just cut your carbs back, and I bet you will see that you do not need to eat all the time, and you will have more appetite control, but you also do not need to have fast. So I do eat 3 meals a day. I would not recommend intermittent fasting or fasting for any long periods of time, because that has, a lot of people have told me that will affect their milk supply, that it did affect their milk supply. And as soon as they stopped fasting, that they had more milk come in. So definitely avoid fasting or intermittent fasting. So is it okay to start carnivore while they're breastfeeding? And that's tricky, because your body will, now if you've been on a very low carb diet before, you may be already fat adapted. The whole adaptation process is tricky. So you need metabolic flexibility, I think, to be able to be carnivore and breastfeed. So if you haven't been on a keto or carnivore diet for a while before you're breastfeeding, I think that maybe, you don't want to jeopardize your, I know maybe I sound like I'm contradicting myself, but I think you should start the process beforehand. You want to be fat adapted so that your body runs on fat and ketones and is not sugar. It's not dependent on glucose for making milk and all that and making your energy. So I would not start on carnivore necessarily when I was breastfeeding, because you wouldn't want anything to jeopardize your flow. So I would maybe ramp down very slowly, like start going low carb, then start doing keto or paleo, and then maybe you can adjust, just slowly kind of step down your carbs, and that might work and not have any dramatic impact on your flow. So hopefully that makes sense. If you have questions about that, you can leave them down below, but I wouldn't go drastically cold turkey off carbs if you were wanting to keep your flow steady. But if you've been doing it before you were pregnant or while you were pregnant, then I don't think you're gonna have any problems continuing on. So I wanna make sure you understand the first month of breastfeeding is really challenging. It can be very painful around your nipples. You want a good nipple cream. I like the Mother's Love nipple cream. But I think the whole first month is pretty painful and pretty challenging. You always feel like you're doing it wrong, and a lot of doubts can creep in. So just keep in mind, give it that first full 4 weeks and don't give up, because if you just keep working on it, all the pain will go away and everything will be just fine. So just know that you're gonna have some discomfort the first few weeks, and then it should even out. And just keep asking questions. I watched tons of videos about how to breastfeed. I talked to lactation consultants. I did so many things. And even though it was painful, I just kept going. And my baby worked with me, and we became a team, and now we're champs at breastfeeding. All right, so wrapping this up, just make sure you have a lot of support. Make sure that you have done keto or carnivore for a while before you have your baby, and I think you won't have any problems. Keep your electrolytes up. Make sure that you have a lot of people around you cheering you on, and let me know if you've had experience down in the comments with carnivore or keto breastfeeding. And let's just get the word out that you don't need a ton of carbs to make breast milk, because you just need to be healthy and support your body with lots of good fats and proteins. And evolutionarily, our bodies know exactly what to do with the right nutrition and fuel. So I hope that this video has been helpful, and I really appreciate you watching. Please subscribe, leave a comment down below, give it a thumbs up. That really helps me, and it helps the video to get out to more people. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.